Hello, Aquarius Risings. Welcome to your monthly zodiac reading for the month of May 2024. As always, we are going to pull an overall energy theme for the month, tarot for each week, clarify that with more tarot, as well as wrap it up with some additional oracle guidance and correlate those messages to the astrological transits occurring during those weeks. So let's see what the overall energy theme is for Aquarius. And again, just a reminder, in case this reading doesn't resonate with you, please check out your sun or your moon, because that may be the area that is being activated the most for you this month. And even though you won't be able to necessarily focus on what house it is or where the transits are taking place, the tarot messages themselves may just ultimately resonate more. So in case this one doesn't resonate, please check out one of those. Sixth house, sustainability. So sustainability is essentially what we're looking at long term, right? What are the things, what are the actions and the choices that we can make that we can sustain, right? Sustainability is kind of like marathon energy, not really sprint energy. Here, this is sixth house. So this could be focusing a lot on health and work habits. And here we've got number 44. 4 is about our internal space. It's about emotional regulation, foundational things, looking at security and stability, safety as well. And so this card is number 44. 4 plus 4 is 8. This is about personal attainment, karma, right? Abundance. When we look at 8, we've got that infinity symbol, right? So whatever it is that you're essentially devoting your time to on a daily basis is what is going to sustain you for the long term. So that's why it's important to be diligent about what it is that you're investing in. Let's see what the tarot has to say. You guys do have Pluto going retrograde within your sign here in like the first-ish week. It's happening on the 4th, which I think is a Sunday. So I'm curious to see how that will impact you guys directly. I apologize if I'm talking a little softer than normal. I've had a sore throat for a couple days. Here in the beginning, the Ace of Cups. So here in the first week, we've got the Ace of Cups. Aces represent new beginnings or new opportunities, and cups represent our internal environment. And what did I say here with the 4? This is about emotional sustainability, right? What are you doing to help you sustain that emotional safety? What are you doing to help sustain that emotional foundation for yourself for the long term? And when the Ace of Cups is direct, this is a new beginning of love. This could be a new beginning of inner peace and of healing. This is the week on the 4th. Like I said, we've got Pluto going retrograde in your sign. Anytime we have a retrograde, the energy itself, instead of it being expressed outward, it is being expressed inward. And Pluto is bringing things up, bringing up fears, choices, belief systems, stories that you tell yourself. Aquarius, this is going to be in your first house. So this is a lot to do with who you are, right? Your sense of self. Who you are seems to be going through probably a very pivotal transformation. But that Pluto retrograde is going to offer an opportunity of healing due to probably going through and allowing you to reflect on this transformation that started to occur in your life. On the 10th, we also have Mercury moving into the sign of Taurus. Mercury is the planet of thoughts, ideas, and communication. And Taurus is a very grounded, practical sign and is also about sustainability, right? It's earth sign energy. Taurus for you guys sits in your 4th house. This is your home. This is not only your physical home, but it is your internal home. It is your emotional home. How we feel not only safe within our physical environment, but also how we feel safe within our internal environment as well. So when Mercury moves into that sign, you could have a lot to say. You could have a lot of ideas, or even ultimately a lot of clarity could come around towards things that you're like, you know what? This transformation that I've been going through is offering me a lot of time to really reevaluate what makes me feel safe emotionally. And now is the time for me to maybe take action on that. Here in the second week, we've got the full moon in the sign of Scorpio. And you guys have got the Knight of Cups. So the Knight of Cups, when it's in reverse, can represent that the action that's being taken is kind of egoic, right? It's kind of superficial. There's nothing really rooted, really tangibly rooted in any action that's being taken. But it can also represent that there is no action, right? The energy itself is stagnant. It's not going anywhere. So when we look at cups, again, we think of water. If you imagine like a small puddle of water where there's no flow, there's no movement, it kind of can become stagnant. It can become moldy, slimy, mildewy, things of that nature, right? So this can represent that the energy itself is stagnant, right? It's not going anywhere. And the full moon in Scorpio is happening within your 10th house. So this is your career, right? This can represent that the full moons are a buildup of energy. They are illuminating what it is that we need to see because they have the tendency to activate our emotional body. And so it could be that with this Scorpio, this full moon in Scorpio, the light of the moon is illuminating where you have taken action from a very superficial place, or it's showing you where there is no movement, where things have become stagnant, right? Here in the third week, the Lovers. Okay. So the Lovers, and I love the fact that this came out. So this is the week that Gemini season begins. It begins on the 20th. And the Lovers is ruled by Gemini. Gemini represents the give and take of information, right? So this is communication. And when we think about either healthy relationships require a very foundational sense of healthy communication between both parties. But also when we look at the Lovers ultimately means choosing what is best for you above all else, right? Choosing your highest good above even the highest good of a partner or a close loved one, because ultimately what is for your highest good will ultimately be for the highest good of all. But that requires you to advocate for yourself. That requires you to speak up and be like, you know what? I'm not happy with this, or I'm not okay with that, or this is what I need. This is what I want. When we advocate for ourselves, that is the ultimate act of self-love, right? So this is when Gemini season begins for you. Gemini season, it happens in your 5th house. Now, your 5th house is romantic love affairs. This is children. This could be self-expression. So there's a lot. This is a big deal for you guys. Gemini season, along with the Lovers kind of coming out, means that you guys could be meeting a new lover. You could be meeting someone new. And that could be even what the Ace of Cups is signifying here in the beginning. You guys are meeting, like there's an opportunity for new love here, because that is what the Ace of Cups can represent. Here in the third week, you guys have got the Lovers. So this is maybe communicating towards that new love interest. And with it happening in your 5th house, like I said, this is your house of one-off love affairs, right? This is your house of new romantic encounters. So that's very interesting and fun. Here in the last week, the Queen of Swords. So the Queen of Swords, she is someone who's a visionary. She is very intelligent. She's emotionally intelligent as well. She's able to look at everyone's perspective and understand everyone's perspective, but ultimately can use her intellect to take emotion out of it and to be able to make clear, concise decisions that ultimately benefit everyone, right? She's also a very clear and direct communicator. She's not a cold communicator. That's more of if she were in reverse. But ultimately, she is a very clear communicator. This is the week that Saturn is moving into the sign of Aries, so the planet of boundaries, limitations, is moving into the sign of Aries, which for you guys is your third house of communication. So that being said, Saturn is kind of, with the Queen of Swords here, is kind of giving you the strength and the power required, the discipline required to communicate boundaries. Because if we notice the Queen of Swords, she's got her hand out. She's like, I'm a very giving person. This is what I am willing to give you. But she's also got that sword here. If you cross her boundaries, she will not hesitate to cut you off. She will not hesitate to lay down the line. She will not hesitate to draw that line in the sand. Like I said, she's a very clear and healthy communicator. She's a great communicator. This is also the week that Mercury is moving into Gemini, right? So if this is the possibility of a new love interest, it could be that you meet this new love interest here. It doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. Like maybe the other person is not taking any action to communicate with you. Maybe you feel like it's just not really what you expect it to be. Maybe they come back around here in the third week during Gemini season. And by the fourth season, you're going to have to stand up and be like, look, you being wishy-washy, you being coming and going with your communication is unacceptable. You either communicate with me in the way that I need you to, or we're just not going to do this. You don't get to communicate with me at all, right? So Mercury moving into Gemini, thoughts, ideas, communication, new ideas, maybe for self-expression, new ideas, or communication in regards to, like I said, romantic love affairs could also be happening. On the 27th, we've got the new moon in Gemini. So your fifth house is really being activated these last 2 weeks, right? So we are looking at things like communication, or we are looking at things like maybe love affairs. And again, this could even have to do with children, right? Even have to do, if you are a parent, you choosing what is best for you and your loved ones is the right thing to do. You setting boundaries with those kiddos is absolutely the best thing that you can do, right? Even if it makes them uncomfortable, even if it makes them unhappy. But ultimately, a new moon is an opportunity to write a new story for yourself, write a new story, set intentions around how you want to handle this situation. Again, with it being Gemini, I'm going to begin to set intentions on learning what it is that you need to know in regards to a new romantic interest. Maybe learning what it is that you need to know with your kiddos while maintaining a sense of boundary. It could be learning new ways to express yourself in a very healthy way, right? So depending on what comes up for you, as far as how this energy impacts you, the fact that this is a collective reading can make it tricky to pin down exactly what that is. But ultimately, your fifth house is being activated quite a bit here in the last 2 weeks. Let's see what clarifying messages we can receive. That was too many. But you guys have got a lot of energy in regards to communication happening. And truthfully, a lot of energy around like emotion, right? So this could be blending that emotional and that intellectual world. If you want to sustain a new relationship, healthy communication is the only way you're going to be able to do that. And that's with any relationship. Like I said, even if it has to do with your kiddos, your kids, children, if you want to sustain a healthy relationship with those children, you have to be able to communicate. Yelling at them, bossing them around, controlling a situation, that's not communicating. It's really not, because kids are very smart and they're going to pick up on way more than what you're verbally saying, right? So we want to learn how to communicate in healthy ways, and that does require us to come from an emotionally stable place, not just with our children, but also with any relationship, whether this is with a parent, a sibling, whether this is even with, like I said, with a new love interest. The more emotionally regulated we are, the more we are able to communicate in healthy ways. That's coming from personal experience. But here in this first week, the Ace of Cups, Justice in reverse, and the Seven of Pentacles. So here with the Ace of Cups, you guys are being given a brand new opportunity for healing, like I said, or even love. But in doing so, there's a need to take accountability with where you've not been properly investing your time. If you've been consistently thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, it's probably not. Like you're not being present. You're not in the present moment, which makes it difficult. It makes it very difficult to maintain a sense of inner peace. It makes it very difficult to focus on that healing journey. And you're not going to be able to sustain any sort of love affair if you're always thinking, what's next? What's better? You're not going to be able to sustain any healing journey if you're not in the present moment. And if you're not able to take accountability for your actions, and you're just not going to be able to sustain any sort of inner peace if you're not able to manage where your time and energy is going, right? Because the Seven of Pentacles is all about, there's a need for patience. There's a need for focusing on what's in the here and now. Because if you're constantly worried about whether this is happening or not, then you're not in the present moment and you're always going to be worried. But there could be an opportunity for love. Justice is like, you need to recognize the part you're playing in all of this and where there's a struggle maybe for patience, right? So maybe there's a need to be a little bit more patient, especially with Pluto going retrograde in your sign. Whatever transformations have been occurring, there's definitely a need for patience here. Here, and again, like I said, Taurus, Mercury moving into Taurus is happening in your 4th house. Again, with the home, maybe with children involved. Be a little bit more patient, right? Here in the second week, the Knight of Cups, the Seven of Swords. So if there is a new love affair here, the Seven of Pentacles is like, there's a need for patience. Okay. It could be like, there's an opportunity for healing and maybe you feel like something within the connection is unfair. Like they're not speaking to you. There's no communication. There's a need for patience. Here in the second week, the Knight of Cups, again, the energy is stagnant. It's not going anywhere. And Seven of Swords can really represent that there's some sort of deception. Someone is not who they say they are. And it's time for you to kind of like put this burden down, right? So essentially what this is saying, like if you've met someone new and the communication is not really like an even give and take, if you feel like you're kind of investing more into this new connection versus what you're getting back, it's because the energy itself is not going anywhere. Maybe the pursuit itself towards fulfillment is a little bit more of a superficial one. And that the person most likely is not who they claim to be, and you need to put that down. That's no longer your burden to carry. This is when moments like that are when we begin to internalize how other people think and feel, and that's not our job. It's not our job at all. If they have an issue with communication, then that's their issue. You're not the problem. They are. Okay? If you have not met someone, again, this is about an opportunity for fulfillment and healing, but that's going to require you to, again, take accountability where you have not been patient, maybe where you've not been properly investing your time into that healing. So the energy itself is stuck, and it's because there's a lack of self-awareness for the part that you're playing in your own stuck energy, right? And this is just overly like you're almost like it's like you're intentionally carrying this burden, because carrying the burden feels much more comfortable and familiar than putting it down. Okay. Here in the third week with Gemini season, the Magician, beautiful. When we advocate for ourselves and we create this space for self-love, when we choose and make choices for our highest good, we begin to create the future that is most in alignment with us. We begin to create the future that we ultimately want to see for ourselves. And the Queen of Wands in reverse. And again, it's like there's a need for patience. The Queen of Wands in reverse, she's represented by Leo energy, and Leo can be very prideful. Don't let your pride get in the way. When it comes to communicating to someone, again, if this is a love interest and they're kind of just very flaky, you get the opportunity to stand up and be like, look, this is what I'm looking for. If you cannot give me that, that's fine. But you don't get to come back this way. You don't get to show up in a few weeks and act like nothing, no time has passed. We're not going to do that anymore. Right? So it could be that there's a need to not let your pride get in the way when it comes to communication. Okay? Again, that's if you've recently met someone. If you have not, and this is more about you and your own healing journey, making those choices, like I said, from a very self-reflective, from a very self-aware place, is what is truly going to allow you to create the life that you want. And sometimes that means being honest and not letting your pride or your ego cloud that, right? It could be recognizing where you don't feel confident and acknowledging, I don't feel confident when it comes to love. I don't feel confident when it comes to my career. I don't feel confident when it comes to expressing myself in a very healthy way. Okay. Again, if we're looking at expression with Gemini in the 5th house, the Queen of Wands in reverse, when she expresses herself, she does so very impulsively. She's very prideful, almost like she just says things to get attention. We don't want to do that. You want to be able to communicate in a very healthy way, because that is ultimately what's going to align you with the vibration you're looking for to create the future that you want. Here in the last week, the Queen of Swords, the King of Pentacles, beautiful, and the Nine of Cups. So like I said, again, in regards to a relationship, you may be laying down the law and coming at this person from a place of confidence, from a place of, this is what I'm willing to accept. It could trigger this sense of confidence. It can trigger this sense of gratitude, and ultimately trigger this sense of balance, so to speak, between you and the other person potentially. Maybe you see this person as a very career-oriented provider, and you being like, look, this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I want. This is what I accept. Then they're like, oh, okay. It could bring them into a state of confidence to commit a little bit more. Ultimately, with you acknowledging or maybe getting clear on what it is that you want for your future and verbalizing that, advocating for that, you're ultimately going to step into this energy of gratitude and comfort and security, which is beautiful, right? That's what we're all really looking for. Well, I shouldn't say we're all really looking for it, but Work through your fears. Where are you kind of like, if you're planting seeds, if you're investing your time and your energy into things that you ultimately don't want to grow, you need to acknowledge that part. You need to take accountability for the choices that you're making. Okay? And part of taking that accountability is understanding where these things are coming from. What's driving you to make those consistent choices? When you do that self-reflective work, you really take your power back. Your hard work's paying off. New moon in Capricorn. If you feel like, because like I said, the new moon in Scorpio is happening in your career house. If you feel like the energy's not going anywhere, then it could be that there's a lack of self-awareness. Like maybe you feel like, if I keep taking on all of this responsibility, then people are going to see that I'm really responsible. They're going to see that I'm ready for that promotion. They're going to see that I'm ready for that next step up. When in reality, they're not. They're just going to see you as somebody who is able to be taken advantage of, right? So you need to put down any responsibilities that aren't yours. Your hard work's paying off, but that does not mean you need to take on more than your fair share. It's time to take action. Communicate what it is that you want. Make those choices that ultimately are going to lead to your future. Here with the Magician, you've got everything you need. You've got everything you need to make those choices, to take that position, to take that action. Don't let your pride, don't let your ego, don't let your lack of confidence prevent you from doing so. Okay? Here in the last week, show the world the real you. When you start speaking your truth, we begin to become more comfortable and confident in our ability to do anything. So that's really, really beautiful. You guys have got a lot of new moon energy here. So this is like a new chapter for you. It's kind of what this feels like. This is a new chapter for you. And again, this is about sustainability. What do you want for your future? Our choices reflect, our daily choices reflect how we really feel about ourselves, right? So if I'm making poor health choices, then clearly I don't care about myself enough to try and make things better for myself, right? And that's a reflection of how I view my worth. That's a reflection of how I love myself. That's just an example. If I'm taking on everyone's responsibilities at work in hopes to prove myself, then one, it shows that you're looking for validation from others while simultaneously being a doormat. And I don't know if you've ever met anybody who's very confident and has earned respect from people, but they're not doormats. Does that make sense? So if you are wanting to create a certain future for yourself, you have to start making choices on a daily basis that reflect that. Whether that's with your career, whether that's with your friends and family, with your children, whether that is with a new love interest or loved ones, whatever the case may be, your choices reflect your authentic nature. And if they're not, if you're not making choices that align with that authentic nature, self-reflection needs to be done. So I truly hope this helped. I hope you guys have an incredible month, and we will see you next time.